and one is a next generation internet revolution. So on the money revolution, Bitcoin and Ether to some extent, but Bitcoin, surely, it is the most secure network out there, is the first, and each one of these words is really important. The first global, private, decentralized monetary system ever invented. And it is going to have profound ramifications. Just ask the people in El Salvador. And recently, President Bukele of El Salvador had a conversation with President Erdogan of Turkey because they are going through a currency crisis. And so I think the emerging markets are going to adopt this kind of monetary system increasingly because their own monetary systems, very dependent often on the dollar or on the euro or someone else who does not control the population. They would prefer not to be dependent on politicians. This doesn't involve politicians. So that's the monetary revolution. And we think that it's going to proliferate faster. Emerging markets are very interested, except for China, of course. They're interested in making the digital yuan the reserve currency of Asia. And that's fully controlled by people. What I'm discussing is not. The second revolution is in the financial services industry. We do believe that DeFi, decentralized finance, is going to usurp the role of most financial services companies today. Most financial services companies are middlemen, and DeFi takes the middlemen out of the equation. You know, in the early days, some of your viewers may know of Lending Club. Yes, well, what we've seen already in the short life of the blockchain world is booms and busts. We are very early. And when you're early into a new technology, this is not only a monetary system, but it's really a new technology, a new platform. In the early days, expect booms and busts. And what I analyze as we're going through the bust side of that roller coaster is how fragile or anti-fragile the ecosystem is. For example, May a year ago, we went through a crash. I mean, Bitcoin it would be considered a crash. Right. Bitcoin was cut in half and other crypto assets were cut by more than that. And I was fascinated to watch the DeFi ecosystem through all of that, because what I thought was going on was there was a lot of leverage. When you talk about speculation and mania, what happens is speculators are taking on leverage in order to capitalize on this boom.
Yep.
They don't even understand what it is. Some of the later ones getting in, they just know that their friend said, no, you got to get in. It's been going up. And then you have a crash and a shakeout. Last May, when that happened to DeFi, I thought that was a very important moment for DeFi, not maybe NFTs yet, but DeFi and for Bitcoin, because the DeFi ecosystem did not skip a beat. There were millions of people wiped out because they had taken on leverage. All they were doing was speculating. Mm-hmm. And yet the smart contract to operating system effectively didn't skip a beat. It did not break down. That was very important. You're going to see some of these blockchains flame out over time. So we are in the process of natural selection when it comes to these ecosystems. So fully expect there to be booms. And I think it's partly that. But we had a rip-roaring debate about this at our brainstorm. And the question was, especially when it comes to the next generation internet NFTs, do consumers, or NFTs in a way, they're digital assets, do those who are buying digital assets, do they care about the question you just asked? And what you see is, just like with the internet, people didn't care. Now, they didn't until they did. Until they did, right?
Well, that's right. They didn't until they did, right? Or they didn't realize, I mean, they were acting as consumers and they were pursuing ease of use. And these platforms were very well designed and very simple and sort of pull people in. And then it's like, wait a second.
Yes. So if you look at Bitcoin, it is decentralized and it is the most robust and secure network out there. Then you go into more and more centralization over time. So Ethereum's a little more centralized, Solana even more so, Avalanche beyond that. And you keep going and you're making trade-offs, decentralization for convenience. And I think we're certainly shining a spotlight on this, what could happen longer run. But as I watched Solana kind of, it was trying to out Ethereum and the technology, or we don't know quite what has gone wrong. I don't think they said they fixed it the last time around, but they didn't. I think this single point of failure idea, when the technology is so critical to our digital lives, single point of failure, which is all around centralization, and we've seen it happen with Facebook and some of the others, is becoming more and more of a concern, especially if we're building our lives, including our careers, on top of these platforms. And so internal sequencing will become ubiquitous. The access to it will increase dramatically because the data coming out of it, even if people can't pay, the data coming out of it is going to be so valuable towards informing us about what mutations are associated with what diseases and what treatments out there, especially gene editing and other gene therapies, would be appropriate for that particular mutation. I often say there are, depends if you want to say base pairs or not, but 3 to 6 billion bits of code in our genomes. Finding a mutation, think about how impossible that was in those 6 billion bits of code. Impossible. Now we can identify the mutation for a very low cost. And there are, thanks to artificial intelligence and gene editing, we believe we're going to get to a point where not only will we discover cancer in stage 1, and that includes pancreatic cancer, but, and I've talked to Freenome, one of the founders of Freenome, I posed the question because they are attempting to do this. I said, do you think that with artificial intelligence, we will be able to figure out when the body is setting up for a mutation that might trip the switch for cancer? And he said, yes. So think about preventative medicine, artificial intelligence, that conversion that I've talked about, convergence would put that movement into overdrive. So we're pretty excited about it. And, because it's such a tough topic to understand, it's very, in big ideas, you can see how thick the science is. And many people's eyes glaze over. And, it's much easier to get excited about autonomous vehicles, which will also save lives.